All right, looks like we're live. Of course, been live for a few seconds there. Oh, that's kind of strange. Wow, I'm seeing some weird text here on the one screen where I typed in there. I don't know what the hell that is. It's kind of strange. What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a good evening. It's a balmy 60, I don't know, 65, 60, maybe 4 right now. Wet, been raining. It might be 70. It ain't great. Not terrible bad, but it ain't great. So today I figured I'm going to do, probably have ended up being a short or will end up being a fairly short video. I might push an hour or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. But I figured I'd go through and, started a couple rig rundowns with the Vanquish units. So I figured I'd do one for these Axial units I have. So obviously what you're looking at is a pretty standard Axial Capra. This is the V1, the original version. I've had it for quite a few years. And actually have never really done anything with it. I don't even know that I plugged a battery into it and turned it on. Yeah, I must have, because I think I swapped out the radio system. I don't know. I'll have to open up the box and see if the receiver's in there. It might be. It's hard to say. Get over to this thing, get a little different look at it if you've never seen a Capra before. Some people have, some people haven't. This one, the hood lifts up for you. And you change the battery underneath there. Let's go ahead and flip over here. And come up there. You can see the battery tray there. Pull it up a little bit. Hiding in there. Sit back in here. Get a 3200-ish, 3600-ish pack in there. 2200 3S. Might be able to squeeze a smaller 4S up in there. But it's all stock. I bought this unit when it hit a great sale just before they discoed it. They still had the V2. They had just released it. But I've never actually done. I did buy a couple things for it, but I've never actually done anything. How you doing, Bobs? Good to see you, man. Never actually did anything with it. I bought it thinking I was going to steal the axles off it because everybody was building, raving about the Capra axles, and I don't think I even, like I said, powered it up. Maybe. I know I never took it for a run because I just took the plastic off the top. Got all stock electronics, motor, ESC. I'm assuming receivers in the box. I may have taken it out. Stock servo, everything else. So yeah, I've never actually run it. Even got stock wheels. So I may just leave it completely stock. I got, like I say, a couple things I can throw on there. I picked up some SSD knuckles, the brass knuckles for it. A flat skid plate. I don't quite remember. Vader, it might have been. Vader RC. Did a flat skid and tranny mount. I may have got the tranny mount, got the flat skid for sure. I was going to use it in a different build, but it wouldn't work in that build, so I'll end up putting it in here. So I did get a couple things for it, but I just never put them on because I've never ran this rig. So it's going to be the quick, shortest one because it's 100% stock. Stock and unused for the most part. So that one I figured I'd start with because it's going to be the quickest go through. Next, I'm going to touch on is the bomber, and this is a V2, so this is the second version with some slight upgrades on it coming out of the Axial camp. Screamy. Ooh, noisy servo. So this unit also opens, hood to the battery tray. I have run this a few times. I've done quite a few upgrades to it. Battery goes in here. That thing pops up, and then your battery gets up in there. So it gives you, forward bias, but it's fairly high center. So there are, things you can do, or people have, worked things and put battery down low on the skid on the inside. Bomber, it's all pretty much stock as far as the main setup, but I did do, quite a few upgrades to it. Pretty much everything I did to this was from Vanquish for the most part. A couple other items on occasion. So if you're looking back, obviously I've got the lockouts from Vanquish. I believe these are just a no brand metal shock and trailing arm mounts. Sway bar mounts. So I can't remember what brand. Like I say, I think they're just a no name aftermarket knockoff. It could be I don't think they're Vanquish items, and it could be SSD, but I think I got those off of Marketplace. But other than that, I put the scale SSD black Chubbs, adjustable 8-degree or adjustable Chubbs on it, with the scale knuckles in gray in the front. That's what you're seeing here. The Chubbs and thing. Axles are stock. I put a, what is that? That probably is a no name. Well, that might be stock. I think that is the stock. No, it's probably an aftermarket. Yeah, it's an aftermarket. I don't know if it's SSD or hot racing, and not hot racing. It might be SSD. I don't think it's SSD. Somebody's front diff cover on the back. It is a hot racing. I put the skull diff cover over top of Shits and Grins. Has a shift servo with a Team K&K brass heavy duty servo horn. And then I did put Lynx Vanquish trailing arms. But I think those, might not be some knockoff. They could be. Everything else I did on this is pretty much Vanquish based. Even the links are all Vanquish links for the bomber. I got to do a little adjustment. I'm going to have to kick this back a little bit farther. Probably use 2 longer rod ends just to kick my angle on my pinion a little bit. Never did that. The front turned out really well though. So it's got the high clearance bent links on the rig. Obviously the anti-rock bar, which is also Vanquish. So this is pretty much a heavy Vanquish build. I did pull the stock motor and ESC out. Went with the hobby wing. I believe it was the 4300 and not the high-end hobby ring, would be the Max 10, I think. I put the Max 10 in here. I don't know if I can see it or not. Get some eyes. I can't really tell here. Oh, there we go. That's where it's at, right up front. So, oh no, I did do the XR8 SCT. So this is 4, maybe 6S, 4S for sure, capable. Let me get a little bit more light on this subject. Yeah, 2 to 4S LiPo. So it's the Hobbywing XR8 SCT, which I think is the discontinued. It may still be an active one. I'm like saying, I believe I put like a 4300. Something for a little bit more speed. It might have been a 32, somewhere in there, 3300 kV motor. Don't quite remember. I believe I put this over on a Radio Link unit. Still got the stock spare tire on it. I do have all 4 of the original tires, which are aluminum face with plastic backs, but I was running other wheels on here, couple different 2.2s. Dusty. I gotta clean it all up. I don't know if there was anything else I really did to this other than just the basic upgrade. Shocks are stock. Oh yeah, I did do the drive shafts. These are SSD drive shafts for the bomber. So I believe that was what it was. I might have bought them individually. It might have been a pack. Yeah, I think it was individual because I think this is the quote unquote TRX4 front drive shaft. And then it's the Ryft long drive shaft from the back, I believe is what it was, but the RSSD. So, and that is, or was about all I did to this thing. Everything, I only ran it a few times so far. But that's, you know, didn't do a lot to it. But this has got some VP items on it, which is one of the reasons I want to kind of showcase it to a point because it goes in line with the other two VP units, but it's Axial. But yeah, so that's a pretty basic setup. Other than that, it's, you know, pretty much all stock and just dirty from hanging on the wall. So that's the bomber. Oh boy, she's dusty too. Let me grab my duster. Knock some of the stuff off here because she's been hanging on the wall for too long and I haven't really ran it. Just kind of clean it up a little bit, get the cobwebs off, literally. All right, and then the Ryft, which everybody's familiar with the Ryft by now, or should be. Now this I've done different upgrades to. Not all, you know, pretty standard ones, but some, you know, individual ones along the way. You're kind of looking at one. I don't know if you can see it that well. You know, Chevy is pretty prominent. Kind of right out in your face. But so basically what we got here is Axial Ryft. Initial upgrades I've thrown at it. You know, got trio stuff on this one. Where's my thing here? It's so this unit I traded. I got in a trade with one of the local guys. And I almost wish I wouldn't have traded now because I traded a pretty nice little package that I had, and it was pretty basically stock at the time. Had a few minor things on it, and then I threw a bunch of money at it. But yeah, I had a SSD Trail King kit that I bought an RC 4-wheel drive Blazer body for that I was gonna put together, which I got pretty much 2/3 of the way put together. And then yeah, I had another one that I'll showcase here in a while. So I'm like, I'll get rid of it. Ryft looks like fun. It had its issues. Couple little ones I had to get taken care of. Not too bad. It's been a pretty decent rig. I've ran it, you know, a bit, not a lot, but a bit. So this again, battery goes up front here. You can see the battery tray right here. Lift up the hood. So I do like how they're doing, you know, lift hood and, you know, replace battery and things like that. It kind of, you know, gets into that little scale area. As far as upgrades on this thing, there's quite a few. I guess we'll start at the front. And let me flip over to this other camera here. It'll be a little bit easier to use that one, I think, even though it's going to be dead ass up front. But as you can see right away, initially, you got the Ryft 555. Is that what that is? I believe that's what I got in there. Yeah, 555. I originally had, I think I put something else in here. Yeah, I think I originally had the 444. And I had the 555 and the other Trail King rig. And I swapped them over because this needed a little bit more strength bouncing around because my Trail King rig is a trail rig. It's not really a rock crawler, so it doesn't need a super strong servo, but something that's going to work. So I stripped them. So I got 555 with the Team K&K brass servo horn. And that is the Servo AF drag link, the spring setup in here. So this kind of works, you know, really stiff, but it works great because it hit, you know, you can get some bounce out of it, and it still keeps, you know, the steering really, really good shape as far as, you know, not buckling or something. SSD Ryft front tie rod, which, you know, came with the drag link, but I'm not using that. That's laying in a box somewhere. But the tie rod, I used, as you can see here, a short link on this side. And on this side, I used a long link. I had to trim just a little bit to get the toe cracked. Now I'm getting the infinity picture in my laptop. So I had to do a little custom trimming on one rod end, so it was the correct length. Kind of the same thing here on the drag link here. I got a long one and a short one, and you know, to get them adjusted just properly so they fit in this unit. But yeah, that worked out really well. Oh, I guess in the bomber I didn't mention I do have the shifts S2.0. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. I mean, this thing was stupid on 3S, let alone 4S. I couldn't imagine dicking with 6S. That would be, you know, fairly insane as far as power goes. Like you say, you have to barely baby it before it's flipping over or rolling over, turtling, because, you know, too much speed on a corner, man, they hook up and you're going to roll it. They were kind of top heavy. Again, battery setting kind of high. So from there, I think I swapped out the motor and ESC. I took the stock system out and swapped it out for a Tekin RX4 crawler ESC, and dusty as hell here. And the Tekin Rock 412. I don't know. I can't remember if it's the 2600 kV or the 3100. I think the 26 might be 2700 kV. I think that's what I got in there. The slightly smaller kV motor. I'm not sure I'll be able to tell or see because she's kind of buried up in there. So electronics, you know, high-end electronics, nice stuff. And then I added the side plates on the rear axles here. I'm going to move you up here to help stiffen up the trailing arms. Again, these you could use the VP Ryft or other brands. I got a couple over here that I haven't put on here yet. Aluminum, cheap knockoff type, you know, Amazon. So I'm going to put on sooner or later, just because these will last for a while, but they're going to take a beating when you really start getting into it. Trio, it's dusty. She'd been hanging on the wall. Trio sway bar setup. Rear shocks are stock. Front shocks are stock, but as you can kind of see as I'm moving around, I added these gold 120 millimeter shock shafts, so it doubled up the front, so it would take a little bit harder hits and be a little bit more dampened. No spring on that. It's just for extra dampening abilities. And then, you know, it worked out great with a longer rod end mounted on the top, and it took all that room right up. And then I just got a longer bolt, and it's mounted to the front. And you can see I got a longer bolt on this going out the back. So that's, you know, pretty much set the suspension up so it's pretty soft and plush. But it will take a, you know, at speed, it'll take a pretty hard front end, you know, slam and bounce up and over stuff without too much issue, without getting too bouncy or, you know, reboundy or anything. For other lights or electronics, I added lights, so kind of hard to see there. I'll put them up. You can see right in here, right behind the front here, there's a LED right here, a 2-inch LED, and another Amazon special LED. And I just got that kind of shoe glued right to the front, so it sits just above the battery, sits out of the way. And then go ahead and I don't know if this thing telescopics that much, but I can do that. Get a little bit higher. And we'll come over this way. I got lights up in here. Got 4 white lights facing forward, 1 back over here on each side of the driver and passenger, then 2 in the center. And then in the back, I have 2 facing backwards that are red that shine right through each of the little spots right here on each side, right in there. So night runs or getting dusk, you can crank on some lights. Did I put rock lights on this? I don't believe I did. I did in front. I got 2 rock lights on each side in front. I don't believe I put anything in the back, though. I think it was just these 2 in front to help add a little bit of light when it was dark out to the front, so you can see a little better if you had to get into a tight area where you need a little bit more light and it was getting dark out. Not that we do a lot of dark runs around here, but towards fall, you get them, it's, dark at 7 o'clock, so you're going to go out and play until 10. You're going to be playing in the dark. So we do some. So it's nice to have lights on most of the rigs. Yeah, the gray one was the kit. This is one of the RTRs. Little hills, get some big hills. Which I don't have a lot of, but there's some. If I head north of me about 30-35 minutes on the north end of the next county over, there's a couple areas that are public lands that there's good 55, 65 foot tall kind of sand dirt hill areas that would be really good fun. I haven't stopped there yet, but I would like to take this over there and do some kind of just hill climbing with it, because I think it'd be a riot out there. I think it would do pretty well. Yeah. Measurements are important, and when you get into RC, they're that much tighter, so that much more important. Off a little bit is off a mile. And then what else did I do to this? Oh, yes, there is one other thing that I mentioned a little bit earlier. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet. You can kind of see it right there. It's poking out a little bit on the bottom. There you can get a little bit better view. But I ended up taking one of the SSD engines. Let me bring it up here and go like this. Maybe that'll help highlight a few things here. I'll come in here like this. All right, give it a little bit better shot. Try to give it a little bit better shot. But you can see the spark plug cap, spark plug wires, the valve covers, the air cleaner, obviously, right there. Let me go ahead and flip it around here and get to the back a little bit better. Go like this because you can get a little bit better look up in there. Here, let me close this down. Try to go like this with it. So there you go. The oil pan, the headers. Got just a round servo horn on the outside end for the harmonic balancer. I would like to get 3D print. I know SSD makes it, but you got to buy the whole engine. Water pumps. So I tried to design and 3D print a water pump to kind of fit it, which I got really close, but my printer filament was so they never really did well. And it's kind of hard to really get a good with this thing installed. But what I did, actually, I'll show this from the bottom because that does show you a little bit here. It's even got, as you see, an oil drain. My finger up in here. So right there, that nut, would be your oil, bolt, drain pan. But what that does actually is that goes through and it mounts the motor, the entire motor, except for the little bit that I trimmed right there off the end, onto the actual spur cover. So that's the Ryft spur cover you're looking at back there a little bit. Let me see if I can get a little bit better angle and a little bit less light reflection. Slightly different look. I got a lot of light coming in here. That's in the bad area. How about if I get over here like this? Does that make it better? Can I get it in there and can you actually see? There we go. That's getting a little bit better without as much light flash. But so I mounted the motor, and there's a couple bolts at the top behind each header in the heads themselves that go through the head into the spur cover of the Ryft, spur gear cover. So I can take two bolts off. I have to lift the interior. Good pick there. I have to lift the interior up out of the way and get it up a little bit. But I can take the two bolts that hold the spur cover off, and that whole motor comes off with the spur cover and get access to the spur. So it's no different than stock, except I have the scale mid motor set up in there. And I still want to do, actual pipes coming out, and tie the pipes together with the actual headers, and, get some kind of setup in here where my, the headers or the exhaust pipes are popping out there. Goodness, dust everywhere. You can tell this thing's been on the wall for too long. So yeah, that's my funnest mod on this rig, is putting that SSD scale V8, small block 350 V8 in there. The big screen. So that was a fun mod. It really adds a little bit of scale detail to this rig. And considering the way the tranny sits in there, believing that this is a mid rear motor buggy is pretty easy to do. It's pretty stock standard saleability on the scale appearance that it would be a mid motor engine. So that worked out really good. And like I say, I have putting this up front, up high here, it gets it right out in the open, so it sucks a lot of air. It helps keep, of course, that thing cased pretty cool anyways. Yeah, but for a stock, otherwise stock, it does pretty good. I know a lot of people had issues breaking axles, and I did beef everything up. It's got, I think, SSD lockers in it. It's got Vanquish ring and pinion gears in the axles, fast eddy bearings everywhere. I believe I put metal axle lockouts on the rear. I might have, I might not have. I got them if I didn't. And these are just the cheapy knockoffs. Oh, I know where they're at. They're on that other set of axles that I kind of swapped around a little bit for the monster truck build. With the VP housings. But yeah, so I've got, a few other things I could throw on this. Like I say, I don't run it a lot though, just because I don't have a lot of really good area to run it, except for, trailing and, rough trailing and crap like that. So a pretty basic build and pretty basic setup. Was, real simple to go through. Simple upgrades. Like I say, I've got a few other things I want to throw on here. But other than that, I haven't done any of the lot of stuff that other guys do. Of course, a lot of these guys that have these are out in a little more mountainous area, so they've got a little bit more appropriate area to play on. So yeah, that is the 3 axial rigs, the Axial Ryft. So I guess in the series, I got one more that would, at least for the most part, fit the build, the series here, getting out of the Vanquish stuff. This one isn't Axial or Vanquish, but it does have Vanquish on it. Dirty as hell, dusty, because it's also been sitting. But this is my Bastard Senior build. Now we'll go through this one a little bit. This is, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I still have to do the body, but the body's just basically going to be a rust bucket, like it sat out down in Arizona in the sun for 30 years and just rusted out. Somebody did a little light refresh on it, bring it back to life. So, ooh, pardon me, got the hiccups. Goodness. So what we got is the ProLine 48 48 Power Wagon body with the suicide doors. This is their comp body. So it's got the suicide doors on it. And I'm taking out these 2 screws, and these 2 screws are literally, literally the only thing holding the body on. And it's solid, it's rock solid. As you see, when I put it down, I was thinking I would put it down holding the body. But when I had that on there, those 2 screws, even rolling over, it locks it right down. So what we have is an old school Vanquish SCX 10.2 builder's kit. That's what the chassis setup is. From there, I added mostly SSD items. Oh boy. At least it ain't plugged in like Josh. Got a battery in here. I wonder where my other 3S is at. Okay, no, it's all right. So, Vanquish SCX 10, SCX 10.2 builder's kit. So it's got the, flip it over here, the old 10.2 skid plate setup. SSD links. Pretty much everything else is SSD except for the drive shafts. I think those are actually from the Bomber. If I had to guess, I stole them off here and put them on that. I stole them off that, put them on here. It's a little bit smoother. At some point, I think I was going to put SSD drive shafts on it, but I didn't do it. But yeah, so this is the old school 10.2 builder's kit from Vanquish with the skid. SSD diamond axles front and rear with the aluminum housings. You know, the center is always plastic with the diamond or SSD. They never made a metal centerpiece, but they did do the aluminum, you know, black anodized tubes. So it's SSD links all over the place. Front steering and drag link are also SSD. Pan hard bars SSD. So yeah, all that's, you know, the SSD stuff. SSD shocks. You know, they're Trail King shocks. These are in blue. Ryft 1100 steering servo, IS 800 winch servo. For the dig, I've got just a cheapy, right, 45 kg 9i mod full-size servo that I had, got relatively cheap, that I used for the dig. Put this over here. It'll set better on this setup that way. Transmission. It's a 3-gear knockoff, but it's actually 2 transmissions put together, pushed into one. Yeah, I'm a little anal about having all the wires kind of tucked away and at least pinched out of the way, so they're not like hanging everywhere. Keeps it a little bit easier to deal with stuff till you got to work on stuff and cut all the zip ties. So the transmission, like I say, is 2 China knockoff Vanquish transmissions, basically metal housings, you know, which were knockoffs of the Axial SCX 10 1 3-gear trannies, which got it into the 2, and then they changed. But like I said, it's 2 different transmissions. So let me go back to this other camera again. Do this close one here, close up one. And what we have, like, see, you got a gray and a red. The gray, because I wanted to see what I could do with counter-rotating drive shafts. And with the SSDs, you can literally take the ring and pinions and move them side to side without having to do any flipping or anything. Well, I guess maybe you have to. But the housing will take, you got to flip the third member, but the housing will do it. So that's what I did on these. So the transmission actually drives each drive shaft opposite direction. So I was hoping to cut down on any possible torque twist. But so in the front here, it's got this, you know, counter rotating mechanism. So that was on this gray tranny, which didn't have the dig system. It was just the back half of a normal 3-gear tranny that I picked up and had a gray housing on it. And I did a little bit of mods here. You know, you can see another piece on front here, and I'll get to that. So it's got a counter rotating shaft in the front. And then I had another tranny that I bought that had this basically same exact tranny, but it was a standard output in front, and it had the dig on it, which is a pretty much knockoff of the Vanquish. So that's what I bought, those two trannies, and made one tranny out of them. And then I got a spare tranny. I think I ended up selling that spare tranny, which is basically a red case stock, XCS 10.3 knockoff tranny. So it's got dig on it for the rear, which of course gives you 4-wheel steer, freewheel, and then locking up the rear axle. But yeah, the counter rotating shaft is something I wanted to try. So yeah, so with the servos that I went over, now I get into the other electronics, which is really hard to see here, but it's got a Holmes revolver 2200 kV in it with the CMS or the Holmes, CMS, whatever the Holmes ESC is. That's sitting right here, tucked up underneath. You can kind of see it in there a little bit. Move it a smidge right up in there. I have a BEC to power the 1100 to get full juice out of that, I believe. No lights on this. What else did I put in here? So I got the 3 servos. Oh yeah, mini. Our receiver is just a mini 4-channel, I believe, from Radio Link. I'm trying to see I can't quite remember what I threw this on, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I run this and a splitter to power, or actually a bypass loom to power both the 2 servos. So I got good full power at 7.4, maybe 8.2 volts, whatever it was I set that unit at. So it's got great electronics. The only really cheapy thing here, besides the dig servo, is the tranny, which really wasn't that cheap. I think it was 40 and 50 bucks, or 35 and 50 bucks for the 2 trannies that I bought. Threw them together. And of course, like I said, I did sell one, so it was pretty cheap. But other than that, I did use, instead of using the Axial shock hoops, I used the SSD shock hoops. Added the support piece between them in the back, so it wasn't really flexible back there at all. I still got the Vanquish fuel cell back there, but it is covered with my top. Although I do have the top, I was thinking about kind of whittling this out a little bit in my bed to put that lid on there, just so I can get in and out. But that's how I'm actually holding the bed on, is with these 4 screws here. Now the bed is all wood. I took some 3/4 inch, I can't quite remember what it was, something off some cheap wood that came on inside a support. It was a support piece inside a box for like a dishwasher or something, but it was like 5/8, 3/4 inch. And I thought, wow, man, looking at that scale wise, that looks like a 2x10 essentially, if I cut it the right width. So I marked out and cut a bunch of pieces out, all basically a little bit better than an 1/8 inch, 3 millimeters each thick. And then took a piece of plastic, which I'll show you here, just a small piece of plastic up underneath it. It's hard to see. Let me see here. There you go. You can kind of see it's shiny. But I just cut a piece of plastic out and then glued the wood to the plastic, creating a wooden bed. And then I turned around, of course, and did a little bit more work to it and got it stained out. And like I say, I mounted it with these 4 screws here, but it looks really good. And now it's probably 3 years old, 2.5 years old since I've done this. It's kind of beat around a little bit. I haven't ran a lot much. I've thrown a little bit of water on it. I used some stain to kind of dirty it up, some grease. I actually took some hands and rubbed grease around on it, so it would kind of dirty it all out a little bit. Flip back to this other camera so I don't have to hold this one. Yeah, that one will work. So yeah, that's basically the last of the quote unquote vanquished supplied builds. This thing actually runs really well and handles really well. Again, I haven't crawled much, haven't got out with it much, so it's dusty as hell. But balance-wise, it's really nicely, set up. It's got a little bit more front bias, but again, this is a little bit more of a trail rig, but it's a capable trail rig. I could take this thing out and actually do some pretty good, lines with it. It's got a decent front balance. Weight's a little high on the battery. Sets up here, but it's not terribly bad. I did a little bit of modding here. As you can see, there's some carbon fiber. An old carbon fiber piece that actually was a servo mount, I think, that I moved or changed, and I used that and set it up on a couple nuts, and that's what actually is the battery tray, so it was more forward biased. And then, yeah, when I trimmed out the body, I had to do a lot of trimming to get around the chassis and get around the here a little bit there. A little bit better. Get around the chassis, get around the servo arm. I had to do a little tweaking here on these are SSD sliders. So I had to do a little bit of tweaking on them, kind of rounded it over here. I think there was a mount here that ended up getting rough, but that matches with the body. So when I put this on, it's pretty much get her in the right spot. She just kind of slips right down, and I got to get her overlapped just a little bit. Then I take my screws and put my screws back in each side. On the skids, there's a little boss right here you can kind of see where a screw would go before for other accessories on the SSD stuff. I thought, hey, we'll get this thing built, locked down, set up, and that's where I can put a screw to mount my body. And I actually intended on putting more, a couple more screws in, or a couple in the front, which ended up didn't have to do, because literally, like I said, I got this in place. I got the skid rails, the slide rails, slide rails, whittled off a little bit to fit the body better, and she's tight. And if it really hits hard, yeah, it's probably going to be a problem right there, those two screws. But for the most part, she can roll over. She's pretty solid, not going to go anywhere. So 2 screws really actually hold this body on quite well. Now, like I said, it's I've done some details on it. You can see I put the window mast in. I've done black around the window thing where the rubbers would be, as if somebody put new windows and new rubber on it. But the rest of it, I got to do a little cleanup, do a little bit more detail work on the blacks to kind of get it a little bit smoother and a little bit better in spots. But once that's done, then I'm going to use basically rust. So I took a couple steel wool scrubbies, just some steel wool scouring pads. SOS pads, I think, actually. Rinsed all the soap out of it, and I sat there, I rinsed them a couple dozen times till there was no soap in it. Got them nice and dry, let them dry for a couple days out in the sun, and then I stuck them in a small, if anybody's got a Dollar General, you go there, you can buy cotton candy. So I stuck those in this cotton candy tub with some vinegar, straight up 100% household vinegar that you would pickle with or cook with. And I just capped it up and let it set for a couple months. And it slowly, dried out, but it also slowly rusted everything. I don't want to get too much of that rust around here. It's floating around, you can see it. And that's just rust dust. And there's chunks and bits in there of it. So what I'm going to do is spray the entire inside of the body with matte clear spray, and just pour that stuff in there and roll it everywhere. And then I'm going to turn around and do the same exact thing on the outside, except I'm going to have to mask up my pieces on the outside. Actually, I still got the covering on it, the peel cover. So I'll cut everything out around where the actual windows are and peel that all off. Or leave that all on and peel everything else off, leaving the window covers on. And I might turn around and take the thing off. And I'm going to do the same exact thing, except I'm going to spray paint it in silver and let that dry really well. And then I'm going to coat it with a good coat of the matte clear. And then I'm going to shake the rust all over it. I've got some bigger, longer chunk pieces of rust that come off my vehicle or my car or truck, whatever, you know, longer kind of thin pieces. I'm going to steal some of those and get those E6000 around the bottom so it looks like the bottom edge is really rusty. So it's basically going to be an entire rust bucket, almost looking like the Sanford and Sons cab, where it's pretty much all rusted off from the top down. But it's going to be like, say, out like it's out in the desert, and it's just the whole thing was picked up and cleaned up and then, you know, left rusty and tossed on the rig. For wheels, this has Proline, or not Proline, J-Concept ruptures. Yeah, J-Concept ruptures. And just a knockoff 1.9 bronze, you know, wagon wheel kind of wheel. Although I do have a set of bronze Vanquish wheels that's going to end up on this. As soon as I get, well, maybe they might end up on this. Yeah, they probably will end up on this because, you know, how I'm going to do my next build, which will be another Vanquish rig. I'm going to use some of those things, and they're going to go on this. Actually, I'm going to be swapping the axles right out. What I'm going to end up doing on this, because I have the counter rotating shaft, I'm going to mullet it with an H10 front axle and the F10 rear axle, straight axle. Because I got a set of H10 front axles here to use. So I'm going to buy a Phoenix, or not a Phoenix, a VS410 Portal Builders kit, and basically make that into a mullet with four-wheel steer using an H10 front axle and the F10 rear axle. And then the F10 rear axle, it's a straight axle, will come up on this with the other H10 origin or H10 optic front axle. I'll have two mullet kits. And then I'm going to turn around and I'll have a set of SSD axles to use on something. Or I can leave this just like it is, and I'll take the the H10 and F10 and put them on something else. Maybe that's what I'll do. But yeah, so I still got to finish the body. The bumper broke on me. This has got a front tongue. What did I do with it? I took it off just before I bring it on. But I said, there it is. So it wasn't welded the great. Cheap knockoff, you know, no name Amazon front bumper, so the weld wasn't the greatest. The design's pretty decent, so I got to weld that back on, you know, do a little cleanup on it, get it on there, and get the axle, or the, you know, bumper push bar welded back on. Other than that, it's pretty much done. A couple little mods in that to get that good, and then turn around and, you know, get the body painted. But this was the last, like I said, the rig that I had that had quite a bit of Vanquish items, at least the chassis. So it is heavily Vanquish based in that respect. Everything else is SSD for the most part. Besides the tranny, of course, which is a Frankenstein tranny. And that's why I kind of called it Monster Mash, because it's SSD, you know, cheap Vanquish knockoffs, cheap Vanquish knockoff and Axial knockoff, and turned around with some, you know, Vanquish actual, you know, Vanquish chassis. So it's got, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, 57, 58, 59 Cadillac automobile, as Johnny Cash sang about. But yeah, this is a fun build too, and it actually, like I said, it actually performs really nicely. Runs and handles quite well. So other than that, that's pretty much about all. I'm going to go ahead and probably go ahead and wrap it up here. Let's see what we're at. How long have been going here? Oh, 50 minutes, so almost an hour. It's about what I kind of figured I'd get into. This is, again, like I said, running on the, I've got it paired with the Radio Link RC6, which is a nice radio. I like it. I got the V2, so it is 6-channel, but you can actually go to the 2nd channel. But yeah, it's a this is a fun rig. I can't wait to actually get out and start running it again. This damn camera keeps going blind on me. Pain in the ass. But yeah, this has been, like I said, a really fun build here on this one. And I think it'll look really good because then, like I say, when it's all rusted out, any rocks I do hit, you'll scratch down a little bit. You'll see some silver back there. And then you'll see rust, if the silver gets scratched off, because I'll have rust on the inside. So it might almost look like it's a big pit and hole. And maybe at that time, if I do get some scratches, maybe I'll start kind of digging away on the outside just to make it look rough around that spot, so it looks like a rust hole. But yeah, I like the scale look of it. So yeah, that's about it. I wanted to, kind of go over some of my rigs and figured, okay, we'll grab a couple more tonight. I'm hoping, again, like I said the other day, hoping to see some work this week. So I don't know if I'll be doing too many more, but why I'm still kind of in limbo. I figured I'd knock off a few more of the rigs here. Next, I've got let's see, 3 more crawlers, essentially. Yeah, 3 more crawlers that I can highlight. So the next video, I'll probably go over those 3. One being a Red Cat X, the Red Cat Gen 8 Axe Edition. The other one is the SSD Trail King with the RC 4-wheel drive blazer body. And then I got one I call Little Geisha, which has a carbon fiber low center of gravity chassis. It was an Amazon knockoff, but I thought it was kind of an original because I looked around and never seen anything like it. Well, after I got it and got that thing built, it turns out after something popped up, but the chassis design was done from a Japanese group, and I believe they called it the Ninja or the Little Ninja. Because this was a knockoff chassis, same thing that I threw together with some pretty good stuff. There was a little bit of Amazon knockoff stuff. It was a budget build, if you will, but not too budget when you see it. I call it Little Geisha because it's not the original body. Which I thought I found the very rare instance where it turns out that a Chinese company actually made their own design. But they didn't. They just copied the Japanese company that nobody really knew about. Hang this one back up. Pick you up there. And then back up in the far corner, we'll get we'll slide the Capra back in place where it was. That was hanging like that. Now we'll go ahead and get the Ryft up next. Move it over. It's a little longer anyways than the bomber. Now we'll hang the bomber up next to it. That'll help hold that body. Now I'll bounce over this other camera again real quick here and give you a look at the hanging wall of shame. So there's the origin, The Optic, the Bomber, the Ryft, the Capra, and Old Bastard Senior. That right there in the middle is the Axial Ryft. That's the SSD with the laser body. And the yellow one there is the little bastard. Actually, no, little geisha. Sorry, wrong one. Then I've got my 2 drift cars to kind of run over. 2 drag rigs to run over. That's the Losi NASCAR. Custom built modified. Used to be a drag car with all titanium all over and carbon fiber and blah blah blah, but now it's a dirt model or dirt oval late model. Everybody knows the Slash 4x4. Tamiya. Tamiya XV01. Couple Losi dirt bikes. Over there's another old Duratrax dirt bike in the monster truck. And I think that was it. Oh yeah, over there is the modified, doing some dirt oval racing with some local guys. So yeah, I got a few other rigs here I'm going to run over at some point. Like I say, the next 3 I'll go over will be the Axe rig and the SSD Trail King with the blazer body, and then little geisha. Be fun stuff. So anyways, thanks for hanging out. Appreciate you guys chilling for a while, and we're going to go ahead and kill it. I'm going to get some other things taken care of and turn around, and we'll talk to you guys again before too much longer. But yeah, holy white washout. So let me turn these off. That's a little better, but still pretty white and washed out. But anyways, you guys have a good one, man. We will talk at you later. Hit that like, subscribe button. Share if you want. Appreciate it. Ciao.